Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to our webinar, Meeting the Manufacturing Data Management Challenge. My name is Chris Parsons from Critical Manufacturing, and I am your host today. Data management is a very complex challenge for manufacturers. Manufacturers generate, collect, and store huge amounts of data. As more and more processes become automated, equipment becomes smarter, and the use of sensors rapidly increases, the volume of shop floor data will continue to explode, and manufacturers must be able to process and analyze it effectively. Companies that can make better data-driven decisions and react faster to issues can stay ahead in the market. But how are manufacturers doing with their data initiatives? On November 17th, Critical Manufacturing will launch a new solution that we believe will be an accelerator for the future of manufacturing insights. The manufacturing data revolution is coming, and in preparation for our launch, we partnered with research firm TechClarity to help us answer the question on how manufacturers are addressing the challenge. Before we start, I just have a few quick items about how to participate in the webinar today. On the right side of your screen, you'll see a panel where you can select the orange arrow to open and close your panel and also control your audio connection. Also in the panel on the right-hand side, you'll see a box where you can submit your questions as you think of them. Julie will be answering questions at the end of the presentation today. And lastly, there will be 3 polling questions today where we'll ask for your feedback. During a polling question, a box will pop up on your screen and you'll have approximately 20 to 30 seconds to answer. Make sure that you click on your answer and then press submit. That's very important. The webcast is being recorded and will be available to view on demand in the coming days, and we'll send a link to everyone that registered today. I'm very happy to welcome Julie Fraser, VP of Research for Manufacturing and Operations at TechClarity, an independent research company. Julie has been studying and explaining how software makes manufacturing better for decades now. She's held analyst positions at AMR, which is now Gartner, Cambashi, and 2 other companies she owned, Industry Directions and iKnow Advisors. She's been active in the MESA International, founding the Analytics Workshop Working Group, and now leads the Smart Manufacturing community. Today, Julie will reveal the findings of a new research survey of over 300 companies on meeting the manufacturing data management challenge. The big question is, what do manufacturers need to do to succeed and get results from their Industry 4.0 efforts? The new research suggests that data management appears to hold the key, and the top performers are approaching it differently from others. So let's find out. I'd like to introduce our featured speaker, Julie.
Thanks, Chris. And welcome, everyone. So we talk about meeting the manufacturing data challenge. And I just want to make sure everybody's super clear on why we're doing this. It isn't a technology for technology's sake. We're doing it to improve our business outcomes. This isn't particularly new. Faster decisions have always mattered. And in manufacturing particularly, if you are cranking out products in your facilities, you know every minute counts. Something is happening to those materials and products all the time. So the faster you can make the right decision and create a corrective action, the faster and bigger the impact of the improvement that you can make or the problems you can avoid. So that's just sort of a foundational concept that I want to make sure everybody's on board with. We're doing this to be able to be more effective in our business. Coherent and consistent plant data is a foundation for achieving the agility and the business value that companies want. I don't think there's much to argue about there, but it is anything but straightforward. This is what all of us in the industry have discovered, and I think this picture, I love this picture. You can see there's a guy in a factory. He's seeing all this amazing data. But since his back is toward us, we can't actually tell whether he feels like he now understands what to do next, what action to take to make that improvement that we saw in the chart or not. He might be looking at it completely befuddled and feeling like he's still missing something. Who knows? We can't tell. Just because you've got data, everybody has data. So it's, can you actually make sense of it and take the right actions to have your business be more effective? Similarly, in this webinar format, I can't see your faces. So if you get puzzled, please go into the platform and ask your questions. That is an important thing. We do want to answer as many questions as possible. So I want it to be a conversation, and I want your voice to be in this conversation. So are you finding challenges? We're going to look at both the challenges and the opportunities in manufacturing data management. Before I go there, just a couple of words about my company, Tech Clarity. We do independent research on the business value of technology, as well as the processes, organizational structures, and mindsets that support success of using those technologies in your business. And our company does focus on the entire product lifecycle. As Chris said, my focus is on operations, manufacturing and supply chain related operations. So that's just a little overview. But back to the data and this concept of managing manufacturing data. So first of all, part of the challenge is that manufacturing data is extremely varied in a lot of dimensions, and it comes from a lot of different sources that have a lot of different approaches and needs, right? Automation is designed to do something quite different from your maintenance system or your quality system. So, and just to be safe, IoT, Internet of Things, SPC, Statistical Process Control, an element of quality management, MES, your manufacturing execution system, also sometimes called a manufacturing operations management system. So there's all these technologies that play in and create the data as well as use the data. Once you gather up all the data, then there's this event to decision process that you see on the right-hand side where you need to enrich it, put it in some context, and that begins to give you a little bit of insight. Then you can put it in an analysis engine and make the right decisions. So it's not quite as straightforward as, you know, gather the data and then all of a sudden you have success. There's a lot more to it. If it were that easy, we'd have a lot more success. And so I want to get you involved. Given that definition that you see on the screen with all that different kind of data, and more than that even, how important is consistent management of all of that plant or manufacturing data to your Industry 4.0 or business plans? And you have 4 choices here. Maybe you don't feel it's very important or it's useful. Some people might think it's important or critical. So pick one of those 4 responses and then click the submit button underneath to make sure that your answer is counted. Okay, looks like there's still a few people. If you haven't voted, this is your last chance. I'm going to close out the poll here in a moment, but thanks everybody for participating. All right, that looks pretty stable now. All right, over half of you believe that consistent management of all the plant data is critical. to your Industry 4.0 or business plans. Another 39% say it's important. 9% say it's useful. Now, it makes sense that you wouldn't think it's not important because you probably wouldn't be on this webinar if you didn't think it were an important topic for you. So we maybe have a little bit of a bias there, but that's great. So most people think it's actually critical, and if you add all that up, that's over 90% who think it's either important or critical. So that's even a little bit higher numbers than we got in our survey. As Chris said, we had over 300 folks respond. And we broke it down actually into these 5 areas. So to take it to a next level, at the high level, yep, it's important or critical. But specifically, the most important thing people see is integration of equipment, plant, and enterprise systems, which makes sense. That is an essential foundation for Industry 4.0. Consistent management of all your plant or manufacturing data, both the IT data and the OT data, is a very close second. A lot of people think that's important or critical. Similarly, and those red numbers are the addition of critical plus important together. And then putting OT data into context with operations and IT data is also important. You can see 2/3 of the people think access is also really important. So you're actually even more concerned about this than our overall response base was, which I think, congratulations on understanding that. That is something that you know, is super important. I agree. But how do you get from knowing something's important to having an active program for it? Obviously, the highest number here is 54% versus 88% who think it's important. So there's still a gap. And we know there's a process to getting your project funded and off the ground. So at one level, it's not surprising. But I would like you to think of it as food for thought. Are there aspects of manufacturing data management that you know are important, but that you don't yet have a program to address? If so, how can you get a project started? And one of the other ways you might begin to think about where your gaps are and your issues and needs is to think about what challenges you have in your manufacturing data. Now, these numbers I thought were sort of remarkably low, but think about it for yourself. Do you struggle with getting OT data into IT data sets or analyzing IT and OT data together? Again, in my conversations with people, I think a lot more people than that are struggling with these issues. Obviously, nobody wants to admit they don't know something or that they're struggling with something, but the often dissatisfying results of projects that we see in research throughout the industry suggests that actually people maybe even don't know which data to collect and which data to enhance. So my perspective is this is nothing to be ashamed of. It's the state of our industry right now. We're trying to do something new, and advanced analytics requires us to think in a whole new way. So this, to me, these are also some things to think about. Do you have initiatives to make these challenges go away, or at least get easier? Now, before we dive in too much more about the study itself, I just want to give you a foundation about the data, because my experience as a researcher is people often look at things like this and say, well, those people probably aren't like me. Well, let me tell you that there's almost certainly somebody in this research response base who is like you. And first of all, if you responded to our survey, thank you so much. That's what makes my work possible and allows all of us to learn from each other. So thank you. And we are really delighted with the response we got to this research. We had participants from dozens of different industries: discrete, process, batch, hybrid, every type of manufacturing. They come from all around the world. The chart here shows that they're also almost evenly divided by size. So we had big companies and small companies and everything in between. Also, the companies represented every role in a supply chain. So we had material providers, components, sub-assemblies, OEMs, contract manufacturers, all those kinds of different aspects of manufacturing. And then the individuals who responded also represented a very wide variety of disciplines and positions in their organizations. So as I said, there's somebody that probably looks like you in here. And these companies who responded, like yours, face the job of setting priorities for what manufacturing data capabilities you need to pursue and what capabilities as a company matter to your success. So, for example, I'm going to ask you another poll question and see where you stand with that. Nope, that's not the right one. Hang on, I got to find the right question. There we go. All right. So, do you feel your organization is very good or excellent at both agility and continuous improvement? So this is a simple yes/no question. It's your opinion. There's nothing statistical about it. There's no data behind it. It's your opinion. So agility is really what we've all been needing during this pandemic, right? Almost every industry has either had a spike in demand for certain of their products, or they've been trying to switch to make products that are in demand, or demand has gone right through the floor and they're scrambling to try and figure out how to survive. That's agility, resilience, that ability to respond when things change. And then continuous improvement is something that many companies over the years have really been honing with Lean and Six Sigma kinds of programs. So my question is, are you good at both? And it looks like the answers are mostly in, so I'm going to close that one out and show you what you said. So this is almost identical to, wow, so most of you would say no. You know, about a little over a third say yes, which is great. But then most of us are still struggling with one or the other of those, where we wouldn't consider it quite in the very good or excellent category. So that is how we defined top performers. And you will see throughout the rest of this data that we often compare the top performers to everyone else. And so in the actual survey, we asked people to rate themselves on a scale of 5 for each one of those. So 1 to 5 on agility, 1 to 5 on continuous improvement. 15% of the folks considered themselves excellent, 5 out of 5 on both. And then another 20% considered themselves excellent on one and very good for on the other one. So we ended up with a group of top performers that's 35%, where in the audience here today, it was 36%. So I think that's a pretty good indicator that that's probably about right. There's a little over a third of the manufacturers who are both very agile and really have mastered continuous improvement. So what else can we say about these top performers? Well, first of all, when you look at key performance indicators, they have made some really radically good improvements in the past several years. So let me explain what these numbers really are. It's the proportion or the percentage of the top performers versus the percentage of others who made improvements of at least 15% on these metrics in the past 3 years. Now, I just picked out 2 of the metrics. We have quite a few more in the actual report. So I picked the one where the top performers are the most likely, or where the portion is the biggest difference, which is time to market. Now, time to market is a huge factor in an awful lot of industries. Being able to really meet needs as they change. So that is part of agility for sure. And that number is just eye-popping, that 7.5 times the percentage. Again, it's still about a third, I think, of the top performers, but almost nobody else could improve that much. And the quality number is actually the lowest number in terms of the difference between the top performers and everyone else. So on absolutely everything, twice the portion of top performers as others made these big jumps in improvements on their KPIs in the past 3 years. So this is really just a look at how much more likely are you to have achieved that kind of a gain. So that's just a couple of things. Now, you want to be in the group that has made these KPI jumps, because we're people and we like to be on a team that's making progress. We like to feel like we're on that path to gain. So with the complexity of manufacturing data, we already talked a little bit about how there's this huge breadth. Well, the automation team, which is also often called OT, or operations technology, and the information technology teams are both involved in this inherently. So we asked a question about the organizational structure. And again, you can see that the top performers are far more likely to have integrated organizations, or tight integration between those two teams. 1 in 5 actually has really them in the same organization. So if your IT and OT teams are disconnected, it might be holding you back from making progress and managing your manufacturing data effectively. So this is an organizational rework. It's going to take time and energy and investment. And it's going to take a big change in mindset to move from what historically has been us versus them to seeing ourselves as we, all of us involved in manufacturing data management together. So one area of investment is really in the organizational side. And in the report, we talk about some other issues too. Skill issues are also a place to invest. But usually when we talk about Industry 4.0 or data management of any sort, people think about technology as where you're investing. So one of the questions we asked is, what is the primary system, or what are the primary systems, I should say, you use for manufacturing data management? And we had quite a few options in here, but even more than what you see here. Again, that's just what we thought could go easily on a chart. Again, the top performers are more likely to have invested in packaged software as their primary systems for manufacturing management. Companies trying to do it themselves cannot expect to manage plant data effectively, nor can they expect to achieve the digital transformation they want from Industry 4.0. So again, the top performers, look at that, more than half of them have MES and PLM. And we think that that's really the way to go. If you're among the 59% where spreadsheets are your primary system, it's going to be very, very challenging. So from all of this, you can begin to see that the top performers are gaining ground. And basically, they've made more investments, and those investments are paying off in their agility, continuous improvement, ability to improve against business performance indicators. So again, it's a group you want to be part of. But let's take a moment to go and look at a long-standing challenge for data management that we saw a little hint of before. But I'm going to ask you another poll question. How much time, effort, and expertise does plant data integration require? So again, remember all of those different data sources that we talked about as part of your manufacturing data landscape. They come from a lot of different places, a lot of different systems. And integration is typically one of the areas that need to be addressed. So it looks like, well, there's still a little bit of change. If you haven't put in your answer and clicked submit, please do that now. Things are changing just a little bit still. But I'm about to close out the poll, so if you haven't responded, this is your chance. All right. So there are a few people, 1% said very little. And a few more people said a moderate amount, but the vast majority said a lot or a great deal. I'm not sure quite why these numbers don't add up to, oh, I guess they do add up. No, they don't add up to 100%. I'm not sure why that happened. But anyway, obviously, most of you think that integration requires a lot of time, effort, and expertise. And our survey takers agree with you entirely. Again, you're maybe a little more strident about it even than they are. So you can see ours were a little more evenly distributed among the moderate, a lot, and a great deal. And we did have a few that said a little or very little. But you know, it really wasn't not that different. So, and what's interesting is these numbers were not much different for the top performers. So this challenge of integration is one that I believe points to something the solution providers need to do. We need better integration, especially in time right now of dramatic skills shortages. We can't afford to have this much time, energy, and expertise spent on integration. We really need new approaches and new solutions to move us into that happy space where we can say, hey, it only takes a little of our time, effort, and expertise to keep the data integrated. Integration is sort of baked in. That's a future that I hope we can all look forward to. But despite this challenge, we showed you that the top performers are making progress, and they're making progress also toward Industry 4.0. So I want to just encourage all of you to consider that the journey toward Industry 4.0 is well underway. More than a quarter of those top performers have really made huge amounts of progress. They feel like they've got significant progress and results. They have multiple initiatives underway, or they at least have several programs. So there are ways to move forward. And if you're not yet at this stage where you don't have everything in place, to remember the critical thing is to start with a strategy. So even though what we show on here at the top are the projects, at the bottom, it starts with having a strategy. Do you have a strategy? Are you planning? So as with any program, the planning stage tends to dictate the success of the projects once they get underway. For all of this progress to happen, as you agree and our respondents agree, manufacturing data management is a foundation that you will need. So, how do you make sure that your company is moving forward? Again, strategy. Be sure you set and share a business strategy. Make your plans, start your projects, make sure they're funded and staffed properly. Tackle the harmonization and integration challenges. They are there. You can't avoid them. There's no magic bullet. I wish there were, but you really need to just tackle it together with your solution providers and your consulting partners and make sure that you do the best you can there. But the things you can do are investing in your people, the organization, the skill sets that you're going to need to have this become a reality. And you can also invest in packaged commercial software solutions such as MES and PLM and scheduling. We saw that the top performers are more likely to have key technologies in place. So even if you have some homegrown software that somebody's really proud of, you need to take a hard look to decide whether that's going to take you into the future. You need to seek new approaches, and you need to look to the market for the solution providers to support you in that. And really, clearly, the top performers already have their MES and PLM systems in place. They're marching forward. They're making a lot of progress toward Industry 4.0. So what that suggests, too, is that you could get left behind if you don't act quickly. Now, I also just want to point out that if you don't already have the ebook of the findings in your hand, I recommend that you go and seek it out because there is more data on the topics we touched on today, but there are also a lot of topics that in this short format of a webinar presentation, we didn't have time to get to. So some of the issues around what are the capabilities in manufacturing data management that those top performers have? How are they staffing? What kind of skill sets have they hired that other people maybe haven't yet? What kinds of initiatives do they have? So beyond the actual primary systems you use, there are sort of approaches and initiatives to manufacturing data management that, again, the top performers have taken these initiatives and explored and are using these approaches more than others. So there's a lot more in there. Plus, there's some recommendations, which I did a little bit of today. But again, this is sort of you can't, at least I couldn't figure out how to convey all the content in a setting like this. But the other thing that's in there that I hope you will enjoy is there are some quotes. Several leading manufacturers participated in some interviews with me, and they had, I think, some brilliant insights supporting the data in a way that makes it much more real and easier, I think, for each of you to perhaps grab onto. So the ebook is available for you. I know Chris is going to tell you how to get that if you don't already have it. And again, thank you for everybody who responded. You should already have it. If you responded to the survey and you haven't seen that, please do let me know. Thank you, everyone. And this is how to reach me. If you don't already know me, I'd be delighted to be in contact and support you in any way I can. So that's my part of it, and I appreciate your participation in the polls. This is also your chance, if you haven't already done it, to ask your questions. Wherever you've got that puzzled look on your face, put your questions into the question panel, and I'll look forward to answering those. Chris, back to you.
Right. Thank you, Julie. Thanks for those great insights. And I do hope that everyone was able to, at least in some way, benchmark where they are on the journey So now we're going to get into the questions. So I hope you're prepared, Julie, because we had a lot of comments during the presentation, and we also had a number of questions, and some of them were related to each other. So let me start with the first one, and I guess it's more of a strategy question. But the question is, I work in IT, and I know we face some challenges, but how can I convince others and get a budget for the program? Do you have any ideas? And I guess that's related to which stakeholders and how are you going to generate a return?
Absolutely. Well, so yes, I often find that the folks in IT understand what they need to do. They have a direction in mind. My experience is that you want to go to those key stakeholders. And in this case, for manufacturing data project, you want to go to, if you're not integrated with your operations technology team, you want to go to those folks as well, to your peers who are managing the automation, and talk to them about this so that you have a united front. But then to actually go and get budget, typically what you want to do is think through what are the top business challenges, opportunities that you've seen. If there's been any kind of a glitch lately that you can point to, often that's an easy way to sort of point to something that cost the company money in one way or another, time, effort, reputation, all those things. And then my experience actually is that the finance team can often help you build a business case. If that's not something you've done before, you might want to talk to your finance guys and have them help you. The other thing I would say is, as Chris mentioned early on, I'm a part of Mesa International, and Mesa does have a whole set, a guidebook and some other materials, some white papers about crafting the business case for plant floor technology projects. So if you don't have that, that's another way you could sort of use to structure your thinking, but it does require a very structured thought process, and it does require reaching out to as many stakeholders as you can. So understanding what your top executives care the most about, and seeing where the project you have in mind ties into those initiatives that are at the boardroom level also is really essential. So if you don't know the answers to that, check out your annual report if you're a public company, or go and talk to somebody in the executive suite, or have your boss talk to somebody in the executive suite. There are a lot of people involved, and getting the funding can be challenging, particularly because this is it's a foundational program. Until you get the foundation in place, sometimes the detailed programs can't take place. So good luck with that. Let me know if I can help you more. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Julie. So the next question is related to those that already have some systems in place. The question is, if I already have some systems like MES and manufacturing intelligence, plus automated equipment, haven't I solved most of the manufacturing data issues? What more do I need to do?
That's a great, first of all, congratulations for having all that stuff in place. And second of all, that is the foundation on which everything else can build. But as we saw in our data today, most people still struggle with integrating all of that data together. And until the data is sort of integrated, but also in a context. So that's the enrichment process, is what it's typically called in data analytics. Enriched and put in context, all of the different data from the automation, from the MES, and sort of all consolidated. What we're finding today is, beyond manufacturing intelligence, this whole realm of advanced analytics. So artificial intelligence and machine learning and deep learning, there are some new capabilities you can lay on top of the data you have, that will allow you to make much more detailed and granular decisions, especially when you've got suddenly more places instrumented. So bringing that automation data and IoT data in with your MES data can deliver a next level of insight to get down to things that maybe were not visible before, and correlations between what's happening in each of those systems that were not visible before and wouldn't be visible even for the most brilliant of us looking at it without these sophisticated advanced analytics algorithms. So that's really where the next stage comes of better decisions, faster decisions, just by taking more of the data into a context and setting the decision on top of that, more granular, more in context, comprehensive data.
Thanks, Julie. So there's kind of an extension of that question that came in, or a different angle. Let me just read it. Is it smart to start identifying, collecting, and defining or transforming data from old or homegrown fragmented solutions instead of investing in an MES where data is aligned and ready for reporting?
Well, my experience is that older, especially systems that you describe as fragmented, they really, you can never get to the same quality of data enrichment if you don't have a system that is designed as MES or MOM is to really look across the entire manufacturing operation. And I mean, I'm old enough that I grew up with those systems, so I knew what they could do, and they were pretty cool. I mean, I worked for a company that sold one of those, and it was awesome. We made a lot of difference for people. But taking it to the next level and integrating it all into a coherent plant data management system would really, I think, enhance your efforts tremendously. Now, I know undertaking an MES project is often a big challenge, especially when you do have point solutions that people love for whatever reason, because there are some great point solutions out there. So I understand why you're reluctant, but I would really strongly recommend at least exploring seriously what the MES could do differently. And if you start down that path, you need to ask some very specific questions around that topic of why is it so much better because it's integrated. But typically it has to do with being able to close the loop. So if you have a quality system separate from your MES, or if you have a scheduling system separate from your MES, you know, those can't work together. So having something that works all together in that broader sense of managing the whole facility or the whole operation or multiple plants, I have seen over the years so many people just be bowled over by the amount of benefit they get through integrating all of that together. That I would be remiss to say stick with your old stuff. There are people who are trying to do that and trying to build stuff on top. Some of them may succeed, I don't know, but my experience leads me to say otherwise.
Thank you again. And the last question, I think we'll make this our last question for today, just for time, is really around skills, new skills needed around data management. The specific question is that skilled people are difficult to find in this area. I think for the next stage, we'll need some different manufacturing data engineers, data analysts, and data scientists. Do you have any data relating to that, or or which organization skills should we prioritize?
Great question. There is some information in the findings report relating to skills. And in addition to the actual data, where it does show that top performers are more likely to have fully staffed up for those positions you mentioned, data analyst and data scientist, also things like IT, OT liaison roles, sort of the plant data management, the manufacturing data management specialists, they are more likely to have staffed up for those. But what's in there as well are some insights from those. I told you I interviewed a few leading manufacturers that I think are very beneficial, might help your thought process. How to go about hiring people like that. I mean, there is a huge shortage. To some degree, you may want to think about how can we upskill the people we have, but you may also need to figure out how to get yourself looking more like a top performer to attract those kinds of skill sets. Again, we're all people. Everybody you want to hire who has those very in-demand skill sets wants to be on a winning team. So how can you create a plant, a manufacturing data environment where they feel supported and they feel like they're going to be able to make progress, that they have the resources and the team they need, the organizational structure works for them. There are lots of elements that all need to come together because it is frankly a very competitive hiring situation right now. So, you know, I'm not a recruiter. I can't answer all those questions in great detail, but definitely good that you're thinking about it. Those are the kinds of skill sets that you will need to succeed with these programs, and the top performers are out there hiring them already. So yes, I'm glad that you're on that track. So thanks everybody for those useful and insightful questions. And if there are more that we didn't get around to, of course, I'm open for that too. So feel free.
Well, there are a lot that we haven't got around to, Julie, but I want to tell everybody that if your question was not answered today, and we do have some time constraints here, our process is that we will collect all of those questions together and we will answer them in an email over the next few days. So watch out for that. If you haven't had your question answered today, you will get an email. So thank you, Julie. That was great. Thank you for your time. We always love having you do our research.
Thank you, Chris.
Just as a reward, we're not going to make you go and download the ebook with the full results. We're going to send that a complimentary copy of the ebook to you. So if you're registered, look out for that. It will arrive in your email. And it's called the Manufacturing Data Challenge Lessons from Top Performers. And like Julie said, there is a lot more research in there, a lot more findings, so you'll get a much more comprehensive view. There's also other valuable resources on our website, specifically around strategy and related to some of the questions you asked today. So go and check out our website and look at mes.criticalmanufacturing.com V8 for details about the upcoming launch on November 17th. With that, I want to thank you for your attendance and your great questions, and the webinar will now close. Thank you.